I was not long on board before I was given a lesson in boat steering. Pick, keeping watch with a hand ready to grasp the tiller if by some mischance the boat should get the advantage of me and try to run ashore. Boat steering is very simple. You stand with one arm over the tiller and sight across the bow of the boat. Then, pull or push according to the direction you wish to do. But it requires constant attention, and the steersman has to be constantly on the watch for the slightest deviation from the direct line and immediately overcome it by moving the rudder. This soon becomes instinctive, like steering a bicycle. The connection between the mules and the boat was the tow line, a strong rope 3/4 of an inch in diameter and near 100 feet long, which was fastened to an eye bolt on one side near the middle of the boat. And as this was near the pivot point on which the boat turned and drew nearly straight ahead, it had but little effect on the steering. A boat is divided into 3 apartments. The center was left open except a narrow walk around the edge and formed the hold where the freight is stored. Over this were placed movable hatches, making a watertight covering. At each end of the boat is a cabin with the roof raised about 3 feet above the deck. The front one is used for a stable, and the rear one is divided into a stateroom with berths and cooking gallery. The cabin was not so wide as the boat above the deck, leaving footways on each side. Behind the rear cabin was the tiller deck, from which the cabin stairs went down, and under it a kind of cockpit above 4 feet high where Pick and his boy slept. It was the hottest and least ventilated part of the boat. As we came in sight of our first lock, the captain brought out his tin horn and gave several loud blasts. The tin horn was almost as much a part of the outfit as the mule. The horns were made of all sizes and shapes. Some were very long, others were bent back and forth like the French horn. The average length was from 2 to 3 feet, and they were all of the old-fashioned fish horn type, where the noise was made by the lips and not by blowing through a reed as in modern toys. The horns were used to call up the lockmen and were blown when you were a quarter to half a mile from the lock. Some of the boatmen, especially the Negroes, became very expert in blowing the horn and could play very respectable bugle call on them. The captain's blast brought the keeper from his house, and he had the lock filled and the gate open ready for us to enter. To enter a lock requires care and experience. The boat had to be steered in a direct line in the center of the canal, for the least deviation would cause a collision with the stone walls that might sink it, for it fitted the lock like a nickel in a slot. The captain steered the boat in, Pick stood on the bow, and jumped ashore with a line and gave it 2 turns around the snubbing post. At the right moment, the captain gave the word to the tow boy to stop. Pick tightened the rope on the post, and the boat came to a standstill just before the cutwater touched the gate. The friction of the rope around the post has to be carefully governed, or the momentum of the boat and its load will break it. This friction and the rubbing of the boat against the side of the lock and the force of the water confined in the end of the lock combined to bring the boat to a stop. Once, when I was driving the mules on the towpath as we brought the boat into a lock, the captain gave the word to stop the mules. I said, "Whoa!" and stood still and expected the mules would do the same. Instead of stopping, they laid back their long ears, rolled their eyes, and sprang into their harness and pulled as I never saw 4 mules pull before. Whoa is not a part of the canal mules' language, and they supposed it was a new and awful cuss word and probably would have stampeded if the tow line had been broken. The more I whoaed, the more they pulled, and the boat was a fair way of going right through the lock. So I rushed to the head of the front mule, pushed him back against the next, and in this manner stopped the whole line in time. The word that they use to stop the mules, as near as I can spell it, is yip-yip-yee. But you must put in all the right accents, inflections, and quavers, or the mules will as like gee off as stop. Every lockman was furnished a house near the lock where, if the ground was suitable, he could have also had a garden. Some days the 4 mules were hitched tandem, thence drove about 12 hours with a short rest at noon, ungearing them to let them roll, which seemed to refresh them nearly as much as half-days' rests.